All right, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here with all of you and to see so many faces, so many familiar faces. This is December 12th, 2021. This is the second Sunday Poetry Series reading with Kate Peper, Erin Rodoni, and Danusha Lamaris. And welcome to all three of you. I'm so thrilled to get all three of you in the same virtual room. This is such a great reading today. As we have more people joining us, I will be kind of diverting my attention to click let them in. So just be aware of that. And with no further ado, I'd like to get started. I've been so excited to hear all these poems. I know everybody's got a book out. So I'm very keen to hear them live. So we're going to start off with Kate Peper. Kate loves to paint watercolors, garden, and walk with her husband and semi-feral dog, Hannah, here in Northern California. She's a 5-time Pushcart nominee, and her poems can be found in the American Journal of Poetry, the Baltimore Review, Cimarron Review, Potomac Review, Rattle, Tar River Review, and many others. Her chapbook, Dipped in Black Water, won the New Women's Voices Award from Finishing Line Press. And you can buy Kate's chapbook in a minute. I'm going to put all these links in the chat so you can review and purchase and enjoy. Let me get this all clicked over. There we go. And so I'd also like to just say a quick thank you to the Marin Poetry Center, who very kindly and generously lets us use their Zoom room. So that's why you'll see the little MPC logo, but I am not actually affiliated with them. So this is just Second Sunday Poetry Series. So Kate, if you are ready, we are ready for you.
Erin. All right, so lovely to see people's names and little faces. So, what the witch told me. I know how to find treasure, she said. Your treasure, only for you. How, I asked. Follow the birds. They'll be black. A murder of them flew east where youth lives, orange and foolish. Wait until they roost, then put on your X-ray glasses. Look up into their bellies. Be sure your pocket knife is sharp. While they're cawing, slice the biggest one's belly open. It has to be the biggest. I did what she said, and trash scattered on the forest floor. I poked at it with my blade, some of it papery, some of it snagged in clumps. The dead crow rolled its eye and spoke, look closer. Early girls on the kitchen sill. My brother hinging a stamp into his collection. All the pets buried behind the pool. My father's hand I held after he died, the warm spot in his palm, size of a nickel. This is not a dream, the crow whispered. And next one, I like flat pillows. So this is what inspired this poem. It begins and ends here. My pillow rocks and bangs through another wash cycle. Millions of feathers breaking down from the weight of water. When the pillow's finally flat, I will love it even more for its dust of crushed shafts and barbs. Feathers like these warned geese that flew over lakes named Rice or Star. After their frost-clear barking faded, I'd find down drizzled in fields, roadsides. Good pickings, I thought, for a mouse's den. Or that oriole nest I found fashioned from feathers, birch bark, and dental floss. Tacked to cattails, it sags with its egg weight. As a girl, I left my crude watercolor of geese and cattails in the rain. Days later, I found it under the lilac, warped, mottled, and more beautiful. Look, Mother, I made it with God's help. Today, I pull off the road and turn the radio up. Some story about bank thieves, thousands stolen. In the chase, a bag blew out the window. The wind scuttled fives and ones into woods and water. Fishermen found them weeks later, woven into a beaver's dam, all bills whole and spendable. And this next poem is about the fact that I don't have any tattoos and probably never will. And I feel very naked about that. It's called The Plain Woman Speaks. On the ferry, I sit between two inked women admiring each other's tattoos. Their excited voices float over my bare arms that obviously have nothing to say. Maybe your body is the new book, an unmarked skin, its blank pages to be filled and shouted to the world. One tat cannot possibly say everything. Even the woman with the walker winks, showing off her ladybug on her ankle. Got it on a dare with my girlfriends. My shipmates give her a high five. Maybe your body is the new church, and its stained glass windows are its tattoos, telling the holy story of you. Michelangelo, who painted God on a ceiling, drew tiny anchovies and bread for his illiterate servant to buy. A simple image said everything. I get that. I want to say to these women, I have stories too. Who of you will be moved to translate them into pictures onto the living page? And this next poem has an epigraph from the Atlantic, and it's about Victorian photography, and especially photographing mothers. Long exposure times meant moms had to find a way to keep their children sitting still, while also fading into the background themselves. Vanishing mothers in Victorian photography. So determined were some mothers not to be the subject. They had their heads scratched out on the negative. Far away in Denmark, a favorite aunt would zero in on the latest clan member, never minding the blank spot where the mother should be. One mother pretended to be a chair and propped up her baby with damasked arms. Another, dressed as a curtain hovering just out of frame, swung her tasseled arm over her toddler's shoulder. Different from today, with so many snaps of mother and child posted online, copied and resent, or blown up for the wall. No one need know the mother's head was swapped out with a prettier version from a different photo, or that she was wiped out altogether after the divorce. And because my mom is out there in the Zoom crowd, hopefully she'll have a laugh. This is, I have a twin brother who's very different from myself in the sense that he loves math, loves numbers. So this is for him. It's called Of Two Minds. My twin brother got the math gene from our father. He loves the sound of fractions rubbing together. X and Y are the urgent hands of children waiting to be called on. Given the same word problem, our mileage varies. The distance between two towns is 368 miles. At the same moment, Jane's train and Bobby's start moving towards each other from different towns. They meet 4 hours later. If her train goes 5 miles per hour faster than Bobby's, what are their speeds? They would never meet, I write in the margin. Bobby's anticipation of Jane in the big city will wane, and he'll most likely get off in Racine, do a little fishing, thinking solitude is best. Jane will blow all her money on the Ho Chunk Casino's nickel slots. Her train left hours ago. When she's sober, she'll hitch back to Kenosha. My brother is not fond of marginalia. After telling me the answer, he rhapsodizes on the discovery of zero and the transcendental meaning of pi. Math can open up a whole new world, he exclaims. I tell him that train has left the station and is moving to a point on the horizon. I can just hear its whistle. Sounds like the number 7, a beautiful number. And this is another twin poem. I guess it's a little more dark. It's called A Parasitic Twin Talks to His Brother. And there's an epigraph by Corinne de Ruyter, Embryo Project Encyclopedia. Parasitic twins occur when one twin ceases development during gestation and becomes vestigial to the fully formed dominant twin. Our parents never gave me a name, but you did, Jason. Kissed it between my shoulder blades. Every night, you counted all the rungs of my spine, praying I would climb out of your belly. One day, a whole brother. Then you stopped talking to me. Our parents decided to sever us into one twin. I forgive you. I always knew you'd outgrow me, but I won't lie. I felt every surgical sawtooth cleaving you from me. How do I tell you how alone I am? Along with cancerous legs, frostbit toes, withered arms to be burned, unremembered, while you're already healing into the yoke of your new birth. Brother, long after my ash has been scattered nowhere, I'll still be with you. The scar closer to you than she will ever be, reminding you even in your wedding bed, I loved you first. And just a few more poems. This next one is very new. And well, I think it will speak for itself. I'm weeding between pieces of astroturf in my vacationing friend's backyard, while her parrot, Sabachka, watches through the screen door. He hates being alone and tries to get my attention by imitating the sounds of his flock here in the suburbs. Doorbell, cell phone, even the smoke alarm. We all get lonely, I think, seeking intimacy with any language we can use. I'm on my knees, gloves on, a bucket nearby, telling him it'll be a while. The bucket fills with chickweed and red maids, same old. Funny how the invasive species seem to hang on the hardest. I pull, dump, inch forward, pull, dump, and get farther away from her pet, who decides to sneeze like my friend as a last resort to lure me back. I tug on a clump of cheatgrass. Ants spurt out of the dirt geyser. I'm sorry, I say out loud. Behind me, I'm sorry in my friend's voice. I laugh and she laughs. If I close my eyes, I can pretend she's here. I could tell her, now that the seams are cleared of weeds, her fake grass looks real. Look at this, Sabachka, a bucketful, I tell him. He clangs his bell, bobs up and down and cries, woohoo, it's a homer. She's not here, but I hear her thanking me. And the second to last poem is a very old poem, and it's written for my brother, Martin, when he got married to his wife, Kathy, which was in the backyard of the home that we lived in. the wedding toast. Moments before we turned our sunlit faces to the raised glass, we mingled in bare feet, sun hats, loosened ties. Handel's water music streamed through broad leaves and crinoline, brushing the bride's shoulders. The sparkles in the pool reflect on the tip of the cellist's bow. Near the daylilies, grandmother presses her grandson's hand between hers like a page, his ring the still point between her life, his. Low dome of orange bells over their silhouettes, her blue dress she will wear in a few months for her own funeral. We turn first to the held glass, my father clearing his throat, then to the new groom under the lilies, and back again to my father on the sloping lawn, the tiers of geraniums below stamping their redness on that day, and to the bride hovering like a wing, not yet bearing the one son named after all the fathers before him, who will only know this moment through stories. And last poem, it's called The Scarf, and there's an epigraph from Psalms 5:1. Give ear to my words, O Lord, consider my groaning. God rakes his backyard. He loves how each leaf is different, each growing and falling in their own time. Looking over the white fence, he sees a woman, sharp-lit and briskly walking while her hand flutters to the scarf wound around her neck. God leans his rake against a post and waits. She turns down pine as a gust uncoils her scarf over her head before she can say no and snatch it back. The scarf is stunned into its long silken self, as if it were wide awake for the first time. Too far flung in the sky, the woman stops and watches it whisper away, a finger smear, as her own fingers touch her bare neck as if feeling a scar for the first time. God gently catches her worn silk and holds it to his throat and listens. He hears her prayer's words, even the ones she can't utter, especially those. He will send her a red maple leaf. It will fit in her palm like another hand. Thanks, you guys. Can't hear you, but you're smiling. That's good.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much. I feel so lucky to have gotten to hear you read so many times over the last several years. And every time you bring the goods, you really do. Oh. The poems are so moving, and you speak about loss and heartache in such a delicate way that always moves me. It's just, I feel very lucky. Sean. Thank you for reading for us.
Thank you for choosing me to read with these lovely women.
Okay, well, let's see, I think Erin, you are next. I'm going to copy and paste your bio into our chat here so everybody can read it as well. So Erin is the author of 3 wonderful poetry collections, and the most recent that just came out is called And If the Woods Carry You. It was the winner of the 2020 Southern Indiana Review Michael Waters Poetry Prize. Her poems have appeared in Poetry Northwest, Blackbird, Cimarron Review, Best New Poets, and Fairy Tale Review, among others. Her honors include the Montreal International Poetry Prize, a 9th Literary Award, and an AWP Intro Journals Award. She teaches at the Writing Salon. She is the very patient overseer of the high school poetry contest and anthology for the Marin Poetry Center, and she raises 2 small humans. And I'm so excited and happy to have you here, Erin. I'm going to unmute you if I can find you in the participants. Here we go. And so please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on this lovely rainy Sunday. And Sean, thank you so much for inviting me. And Kate, that was such a wonderful reading. I loved hearing you. So I'm going to be reading from my brand new book that just came out on December 1st. And I always have to show off the cover because I just adore it. It's an image by the artist Chai Yoshi. And I highly recommend searching for her and looking at her work because it's all equally stunning. So I'm going to just kind of go through the book and read some poems I picked out that I just sort of felt like reading today. The first one is appropriately called On Being Out of the Woods, which I kind of began writing. I was watching a lot of medical dramas when I was nursing my second daughter. I was just sort of, binge watching them while she would fall asleep on me. And they were always talking about, oh, are we out of the woods yet? Now we're out of the woods. And then of course, something else awful would happen. So it says On Being Out of the Woods. They don't tell you the woods are like the universe, infinite and expanding. There is no getting out. You can only weave between the trees, outrun the cones exploding into growth. The compass spins, dear so-and-so. Branches blacker than night smack the guiding star about, an errant firefly. They don't tell you the woods are like the past, haunted and evergreen. There is no forgetting. To forgive is to move, away or toward. Memory, eyes in the dark. Memory, a clearing. Dear so-and-so, as you may have guessed, to be wood-bound is to be bound to every risk. May the wolf howl only in the distance. The rustling be but the waking of owls in the gables of dusk, born to hunt, reared on luck. They don't say the woods will make you pray. May the wings slapping above be but fruit bats, sugar seekers with no lust for blood. It's okay to pray. Defenseless, you fill with reverence these wedded roots, the leaf-strung lute, the wind that strums the same damned seasons, cyclic and scything. To breathe is to feel the dead inside you rising. Dear so-and-so, let me tell you, the woods are like love, the most beautiful place you'll ever be, and terrifying. Turn around, get a little better light. I think I'm in the dark in here. So the next poem is called To Never Have Been. It actually is kind of a response to this thing I learned about. It's called antinatalism. There's this book called To Never Have Been, The Case Against Being Born, and basically argues that it's just irresponsible on the whole cosmic level to bring children into the world, even aside from all the scary reasons that we are dealing with today. But so this is my response to that. To never have been. Of reincarnation, my husband said, imagine the horror of being a baby again. I saw only babies paraded in prams like tiny monarchs and didn't understand. Then summer came with its terrible heat inside locked cars. The logic of oblivion is irresistible. If a thing does not exist, it cannot suffer. But wouldn't I miss this suffering, the strip mall stricken with sunlight, how the death ache in my chest bolts awake. The baby cries and no one comes. I don't want to think about the heat. A belief in past lives is the belief in connection. The baby forgotten in the car was once the mother remembering with a bolt of adrenaline hours later at her desk. My husband explains the law of karma is that we must suffer our every desire. The mercy lies in portion size. The suffering is spread over many lives, so it cannot destroy us. So every life destroys us a little at a time. I don't want to speak of what the mother finds. In this life, I remember the baby with the bolt of the lock. A terrible heat feeds distant fires, casts the sun an otherworldly pink. A bolt of beauty unlocks an ageless ache. The baby sleeps through the moment she was almost, but not, left. If we rise and fall from the same source, why rise at all? I want to say, to suffer, love, but my logic goes all loopy, keeps chasing its tail. Maybe all logic is circular. Maybe there is no oblivion but this. So the book is in 4 sections. The first section is called The Woods, and both of those poems came from that section. The second section is called The Village, and it's more focused on kind of domestic spaces and the dangers of girlhood. So this is called, well, I'm actually just going to read it because the first line, or the title is the first line. I was the girl who jumped first into the sanest danger, from ledges, a sensible length above the creek, tide just high enough to cover the mundane wreckage of small town reckless, Chevys and shopping carts, corpse cows fat with fermented clover, down deep where currents creep quick and colder. There, sunk in the silt, the girl, the ghost, the gift, my country spooked me with. 2 towns over, she vanished from her bed, or was rumored rotten in man-tall grass by moonlicked railroad tracks, the prologue always the same. She wandered, she strayed from, yes, fear twice removed is fear. I grew into the girl who never stayed past curfew, always drove myself so I'd never have to owe or beg my way, accelerated out of every turn in my mother's roll-prone Jeep, protected by a physics I barely grasped. I circled risk beneath those fog-dulled stars. I never took a goddamn thing too far. So this is kind of staying in that same world of girlhood. Time capsule, the uneven field. Yes, I went to the field like a virgin, to the mouth of a volcano, meaning I was in love with my ornaments, the jeweled tug at my lobes, the gold squeeze at my throat, each pulse, the secret hollow behind each ear, swooned with sandalwood and slumber. Grasshoppers slammed themselves against my bare midriff. Yes, I came to gather eyes like moths. I came despite, I knew, the common root of sacrifice and sacrament. It was a rite of passage to be named for the part that beckoned best. Yes, I went to the field like a bride, drunk on dowry, all that worth, all that sparkle in his stare. Yes, I wanted to be watched, thus christened. Yes, other girls returned, shining like the moon, by which I mean on the other side of that romanticized light, there is a dark tree line where anything could hide. Husk of daylight heavening the sky, fragrance of wild vines coiling barbed wire, blossoming small white stars named jasmine, honeysuckle, hush. The field was a body of water. I learned to float by holding still. The field was a mirror that returned my body to me through his eyes. No, the field was a body of water, and I kept sinking through my own reflection. The slightest scramble between sacred and scared, aware suddenly of the cold in my cutoffs and crop top, sheer the drop. No, I didn't fall for him. If I burned, it was for beauty, that plummet through the many-storied night. Let's see. So I think I'm going to have time for two more because the last one's a little long. So this one is called Microchimerism, a Proof. And I'm skipping now to the last section of the book, which is called The Clearing, which is kind of the more family and love and childbirth and mothering kind of poems. So Microchimerism, a Proof. If a cloud is an accretion of loosely held molecules, a person an accretion of loosely held traits, if rain, if exfoliation, erosion, there are cells belonging to one who never became, grafted with the slick of me. And there was a boy who died just days after our first kiss. What might have been a blade of shin, a torrential or unexceptional affair, a vital organ I could have held skin to skin, micro, very small in comparison with others of its kind, also too small to be seen by the unaided eye. The sound chimera evokes a shimmering, heat rivering a highway, film of light on leaves, fishnet of webs I have run through, how they cling, how shining enlarges a thing by blurring its endings. Imagine the slick of me as an empty room. If you're not squeamish about blood, replace empty with haunted and room with womb. Before a house can be sold, its ghosts must be disclosed, because we are willing to believe that walls can hold. The pillar of cold in the hallway, the scent of cigarettes, of sex. Beware, I mosaic facts to slant faith into something tangible that stays. In memory of the dead boy I kissed once for only minutes, I wear the chap of his lips on my lips. Imagine rain as pollen, shaken from a lily's elaborate stamen, if everything it touched stained saffron. Tell me again how a hurricane ripples from the single flap of a morpho butterfly wing. Sublime, isn't it, to believe in that, but also to believe that life exhaled an atmosphere where it could breathe, life meaning virus, but also me. See this bruise fading on my thigh. I can't recall the corner I collided with, but must have left some skin cells there. How long do cells live if they are never born? Why not forever? Why not everywhere? So my last poem today is called Transfusion. My daughter's blood thins as it weaves through her spleen, so we enter the land of illness, settle in like tourists in a war-plagued nation, sure the bombs will fall, but not on us. My daughter is 10 months old, so I have to nurse her to keep her still while they insert the IV. So she screams and sucks, sucks and screams, learning sustenance is this, but also this. My daughter's wrist is splinted, bandaged, so she cannot unbind herself from this reverse bleeding. So her body accepts the needle, the thread of blood that stitches her to wellness. So this blood will propel her through health's wilds until it too is burnt away. So oxygen circulates with the clattering carts, the weak coffee, the hanging bladders of sugar and saline. So we wait behind the plastic curtain, watch cuffs and big and little souls brisk past, as if everyone but us is cut off at the shins. So we listen to the whimpers of children we can't see, soft hushes of their hidden parents. but I do see them when I take my turn to pace the length of our ward. Some are like my daughter, dual citizens of sickness and health. Others are here for chemo, health a land of gold paved roads they've only heard of, never known. So I want to describe these children, their clear-cut foreheads, their eyes like oil-skinned lakes, only God could have set ablaze. So I'm tempted to say angelic, otherworldly, so I learn how far I am from compassion, from inhabiting another's life. So my daughter takes the blood of another and grows bright with it. She glistens, a health that nearly sickens in this place where others take into their bodies whatever they are told, and still they pale unto translucence. So some of these children will die, taking the cancer with them. Still, we get hungry, and the cafeteria is a copy of a cafe, the sandwich a kind of food we might enjoy in different light. So night, and these halls fill like boulevards in liberated cities where even the shell-shocked come out to stroll in evening. So the glass doors part, so we leave, burn a little upon re-entry into this blessed dusk. The sidewalk sparked with mica, pines pixelated with wind, glittering impossibly. So it's still possible to feel the day rising up from the asphalt, a heat our legs swing through as if through a field. It's still possible to fall into our car as if across the back of an old mare who knows the way home, or better yet, to a new place where we can pitch a life beneath some abandoned plot of sky overgrown with stars, where we can believe luck really is common and tarnished as a penny. So we pocket it, unashamed, knowing it can buy us nothing but the moment of its gleam. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Erin. Oh my gosh, those were just wonderfully and heartbreaking, and so much music. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about your poems is that the sounds are just spectacular. The assonance and the internal rhyming and just, I love it. I love it. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wonderful poems with us today. Okay, and so Danusha Lamaris is up next. Danusha is the author of The Moons of August, which was chosen by Naomi Shahib Nye as the winner of the Autumn House Press Poetry Prize and was a finalist for the Milt Kessler Book Award. Some of her poems have been published in the Best American Poetry, the New York Times, the American Poetry Review, Prairie Schooner, The Sun, Tin House, Gettysburg Review, and Plowshares. Her second book, Bonfire Opera, was a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize and a winner of the 2021 Northern California Book Award. She is the recipient of the 2020 Lucille Clifton Legacy Award. She teaches poetry independently and is Poet Laureate Emeritus of Santa Cruz County, California. She is currently on the faculty of Pacific University's low residency MFA program. And I'm so delighted to have you here, oh my gosh, Danusha. Like Daenerys, where did that come from?
I've misspelled my own name recently this year, and so I think we all get a pass.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Somebody asked me what my name was just this week, and I gave them my mother's name, and I don't know where that came from. So
that's worth writing about. That's worth writing about. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for being the hostess with the most here, doing all of this that you're doing behind and in front of the scenes. And I have to say, this is just the most wonderfully witchy reading I've been to all year, or in as long as I can remember. I actually changed just about everything I'm going to read after hearing what was read and what's filling the space. So, and I'm feeling so moved too. So thank you. other poets for reading. Thanks, Kate and Erin. And thank you everyone who's taking some time out on a rainy Sunday to do this with us. Much appreciated. I guess I'll just delve into my new playlist. I tend to like to start with a short poem, so that one's the same. Shortish, 14 lines of it, called What Begins. What begins in beauty ends in beauty. What begins in sorrow ends in sorrow. The seed once planted soon in full bloom. If grief, then grief. If anger, anger. They say the first week of any love affair reveals its end. Give me the child at 7, and so forth. And didn't the world begin with a bang? Hard to argue for another truth. But I have seen a heart worn thin take to small repairs. Have watched a blue jay born wild eat out of a woman's hand. And didn't we begin as tadpoles, curled and gilled? I want to think the starting place is only one location on a curve that we can follow to another end and then begin again. See, I'm reading out of different books. I seldom read out of my first book, but I felt like it today, and I think it's the rain. And there were things in there that made me feel like winter and fall. And so I'm going to read a poem called Apples for that reason. I'm just feeling, are most of you in California that are on, you can see raise your hands. Yeah, so we're kind of around here in the same weather for today, at least. Apples. One, tossed to Aphrodite, begins a war. Eve, that fateful bite into the crisp red skin. Distracted by the sight of golden apples, a virgin huntress loses a race and must marry. Each apple a kind of failure. The body calling out desire. Isn't there always something we want more than our own happiness? A pull toward the fall. Haven't we all loved too much? Snow White bit into the flesh laced with poison. Love is something we fall into. Fall, the time of ripening apples. In England, one falls pregnant. Life requires collapse, holds it out to us, sweet and fragrant. I don't think I've read that in years. So it's funny the things that sort of get in our rotation and then the ones that somehow fall out of it. But here we are in falling. And then all these poems, oh my gosh, I wanted to respond in some way to some of them. And so I'm gonna read a poem called Daughter and then a poem about my son. It's feeling very embryonic around here today too, on all fronts, I have to say. Daughter. I always wanted a daughter, which is to say, I wanted a better self flecked from my marrow, made flesh. I wanted this bone of my bones to move in the world exceptional and unharmed, not this world, but a world almost exactly unlike it. Same paved streets and street cafes, same slow unfurl of spring. Only in that world, the green of field and orchard is still wanton with winged things, their bellies powdered with the flowers' gold dust. Daughter, I say, and I mean a list of what ifs, a cacophony of sorrows. I imagine her tall, lithe as willows. When I say daughter, I mean a match, ready to strike herself against the world that isn't this one. I mean luck. I mean a river empty of drowning. I mean an arrow aimed at an unnamed star. Who said a daughter is a needle in the heart? I would take that needle, sew her a dress of yarrow and blood. In the world, not this one, I have a daughter. She is a long braid, a memory of fire. She goes before me, shining darkly into a city of gold, of salt, that I will never see. Thank you. And now one for my son, called Working in the Garden, I Think of My Son. And I guess now I'm reading from my actual more recent book, Bonfire Opera. Working in the garden, I think of my son who is nothing now, but a few fistfuls of ash, not even that, since ash dissolves and is taken into the bodies of plants or swept into the air on the wind. He's so very fine. He slips undetected through a whale's baleen or a beetle's gullet. He can even rise through a stalk of grass with the upward pull of phloem in these first green days of spring. He has no use now for the soft black hair through which I would run a slender comb, nor for his oddly shaped thumbs, nor anything in this world, though the things of the world may have use of him, his molecules filtering through them. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, a whisper of hydrogen, the modest building blocks of life, quietly and without announcement. I think I'll read also a new poem that I don't know if I've read to people yet, called The Cows of Love Creek, and it comes from what I call eating my friend's cows, which I have done. She has given me meat from her ranch, and I have also met those cows. And so how to marry those things, right? The cows of Love Creek are eating corn cobs from our hands, their soft mouths grazing our fingertips, tongues torqued sideways. We offer apples, lower them through the wire-strung fence, and they take them, eyes widening at the rush of sweetness. And for a moment, we're in love, not only with each other, but with their wet and gentle nostrils, their twitchy ears and busy jaws, the way they munch the goodness of summer, bellies fattened by clover, by dried hay and dandelion, the scrub that flattens easily beneath their hooves. If I could, I'd name them goldenrod, cocklebur, tansy. After the sparse blooms that decorate the field, they are only a year old, not far past suckling, yet look how they take the world in, a hunger to feast on the light falling along the meadow, on the slender pines circling the field, an earlobe folded, furred, my beloved stands in the tree's long shadow. We watch the swoosh of their tails, admire the chestnut of this one, the dapple of another, feed them cob and ripe fruit, touch the tufts of fur that sprout from their crowns. I do not want to say that love is like devouring, but devouring is like love. Didn't we just last winter accept the gift of beef from this very ranch? Have we not sliced into the tender red meat laced with salt? Who or what does that make us? I bend to pick another windfall apple, offer it to the nearest, the wet tongue grazing my palm. This is not repentance, a gesture to reset the scales. Or is it? How do we love the earth without getting blood on our hands? Thank you. Those big questions. And I'm looking at time. I think I'll read two more. One's short and one, I want to say regular. I don't know why we always introduce poems by length, or not always, but we're prone to doing that, right? This one is this long. This one is that long. I don't know why we do that. We're trying to classify something and make order of the universe, probably. Or prepare you for, I don't know what. They're actually not that different in length. Okay, so anyway, this is a poem called Okra, which is one of the main ingredients in the national dish where my mother was from, in Barbados. And you have okra and cornmeal as described in this poem. So, okay. Okra. My mother used to wash them in our old nicked colander, then drop them into a pan of bubbling cornmeal. I recall the quick work of her hands, the ways she held the knife beneath her thumb, took the sticky pods and spliced them in the air. Butter, pepper, salt, and memory. Whose mother's gift was this? And in what forgotten country? To her it was island food, cuckoo, the name for okra made this way, and if you were lucky, served with a sliver of flying fish. Taste of home to her. To me, flavor of somewhere I had only been. Impossible to count backward, trace, our line broken by ships. Instead, the memory of hand and blade, the evidence that blood requires. If you cannot give me the past, give me at least the taste. Blood and salt today. That is the way of it. And for last poem, I'll read a newer one. This is what they look like, messy pieces of paper all over my desk. Nothing Wants to Suffer. There's a beautiful book by the poet Linda Hogan, who is Chickasaw, I believe. And it's called, is it Dwellings? I think it's that book. And also she has a newer one called The Radiant Lives of Animals. If you want to read nature writing that will just blow you away, I really want to point you toward Linda Hogan's writing. She lives in a house in a field by herself, surrounded by wild things. And she describes things like growing flowers in pots in her bedroom and leaving the windows open, and the hummingbirds come in and feed in her bedroom. And I just read it and go, I didn't know you could do that. You know, this is news to me. And it's really beautiful, her life and how she writes about it. So, okay, just want to say that about Linda Hogan. And I took the first line, or the title rather, of this poem, and the first line, I guess, Nothing Wants to Suffer, from an essay in Dwellings, where she's talking about corn and talking to the field of corn. And anyway, oh, thanks for putting in a link, Sean. There's a link for The Radiant Lives of Animals. So that's where she's doing that hummingbird magic. Maybe I need a sip of water. Okay. Nothing Wants to Suffer, after Linda Hogan. Nothing wants to suffer. Not the wind as it scrapes itself against the cliff. Not the cliff being eaten slowly by the sea. The earth does not want to suffer the rough tread of those who do not notice it. The trees do not want to suffer the axe, nor see their sisters felled by root rot, mildew, rust. The coyote in its den, the puma stalking its prey. These too want ease and a tender animal in the mouth to take their hunger, an offering one hopes made quickly and without much suffering. The chair mourns an angry sitter. The lamp, a scalded moth. A table, the weight of years of argument. We know this, though we forget. Not the shark, nor the tiger, fanged as they are, not the worm content in its windowless world of soil and stone. Not the stone, resting in the riverbed, gazing up at the stars. Least of all the stars, ensconced in their canopy, looking down at all of us, their offspring, scattered so far beyond reach. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Danusha. You know, I talking about suffering, it's funny, there's a sort of an old Yiddish joke in my family that my whole, you know, all my relatives have said, you know, I'm not asking for a lot of suffering, just a little bit of suffering is all I ask. So, you know how to live your life, right? Just a little bit of suffering is all you need. So
just enough.
Not too much, just a little. So anyway, thank you so much, Erin and Kate and Danusha. This has been such a lovely afternoon. There have been so many moving poems, so much music, and visceral, powerful images. And I love the family, right? All of these, every single poem, well, not every single poem, but each of you has read so many family poems. And I feel like, you know, this is the little poetry family that I'm trying to create here. And I'm so glad you have all partaken and have joined me and are hopefully going to continue to keep coming back. I'm going to try to unmute Erin and Kate just so you can say hi for a second before we wind down and close for the evening. But this has been just lovely, and I'm really grateful to you for joining, and I'm grateful to Marin Poetry Center again for letting us use their Zoom room. And I hope everybody comes back. The next reading is in January. It's always on the second Sunday at 3 o'clock. We always are going to have great poets, and join the family. Keep coming back, everybody.
I just love that you're making poetry community, because that's a real thing. And I feel like poetry community is some of the best community to have, especially in these times. So I love that you're doing that here.
Thank you.
I can feel it.
Good. Awesome.
Dawn, you are such a hard worker. I just really appreciate all that you do for the MPC and beyond. So.
Thank you. Well, hopefully I haven't messed anything up with this recording. I had a few technical errors in the previous recording, so we'll see how this one goes. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much. It's been great, and I hope to see you all next time.
Thank you so much. And thanks
so much, everyone. Thank you for the lovely comments. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
And gorgeous poems, both of you.
Well,
thank you.
You're very lucky. Very lucky.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.
You too.